what to learn from this video is how to create a two-dimensional control array in VBA. This is part 1. What you're learning here is how to create control array, how to use arithmetic progression in control array. That is how to use arithmetic progression of mathematics to work out formulas in control array, how to create a spreadsheet in VBA, how to use for next statement, how to use load to load control objects like label, text box, etc. That is load statement. How to use static and dynamic arrays in VBA, how to move simple programming to object-oriented programming, how to use class module in VBA, how to create property get and let sub procedures, how to use functions in class model, how to use if statement in VBA. These are things you are to learn in this video. So let's begin. Let me open a standard X. Now what I needed to do now is to put up bringing in this the text box. Now before I do that, let me change the font of this, the font of the form. So I want to use Times New Roman bold 16. Okay, and I need to change this to Times New Roman 2 bold and 16. So I needed to the name of the form. I needed to change the name of the form to be txt cell. These are each of the cells. Now, to create a control array, I can use copy paste to create a control array. But in this case, I don't want to copy. So what I will do, I will use the property panel. I'll use the property panel. I'll go to index. I'll just type in 1. If I type in 1, I have created a control array of this. So now for the text, I needed to delete this text. So having created this, let me name this to be FMR. Let me call it spreadsheet. This is the name of the form. This is called spreadsheet. So in this case, I'm going to create a static array in which the columns, the rows and columns are constant, are fixed. They are not dynamic, they are not changing. That is what we're going to create first. Now, and I want to use a simple programming. To do that. Then before I go into object-oriented programming. So let's begin. Now I've created this. Now let me just come here, create a button. Now I name the button CMD. So it's a CMD create cells. CMD create cells. CMD create cells. So Now I needed to change the caption. I will just call it create cells. Now go into, this is a form load, this is a form, as the object is a form, this is a procedure which is load, so which is this. So when the form is loaded, I want the text box not to be visible. So what I will do now is, let me say, I will just say, I will say txt dot, okay, txt, this is a control array, so I needed to put the index 1. This is the first index dot visible equal to false, which is F. Now that means if you open this, you will not see that form, you will not see it. So that is that. So let me go back to the form. I needed a color, the back color. I'll change the back color to blue. I like blue. Blue is my favorite color. So let me go back to this point. So what I'll now do next is to go to object, select this object, which is the control, the command button. I'll select the command button here. I need to program this command button. Now in this command button, I will say text cell, bracket open 1, bracket close, dot visible equal to true. There are some other things I needed to call up. Now I'll put everything in here in the form, in the code environment, of the form. So I'm coding the program now. So what I'll now do next is to write a private sub, let me call it create spreadsheet. Call it create spreadsheet. Now to create a spreadsheet, I need to create a spreadsheet where, let me just explain something here. I need to create a spreadsheet. These boxes in this table-like form. These are text boxes. Now the index of this first one, which is 1. Now the subsequent one, this one will now be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now that means you have the total number of columns. The total number of columns is 7. Now, and here we'll have how many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we also have 7 rows. So total number of rows is 7. Now if you see the counting now, if you count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The next place you're starting, you start with 8. That is from here, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, continuously. Now if you come to this place, you say you have 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you have 21. So let's stop here. Now when you study the sequence, this sequence of numbers, you notice that this one, there is an increment of 1. So now let's use arithmetic progression formula of Tn equal to Tn equal to A, which is the first one, plus n minus 1 times the difference. Here in this case the difference is just 1. Now we are looking at the column. We are looking at the rows. We are looking at the rows. Now we are looking at the rows. The way it moves, there is a rows. We're looking at each rows. Now if you study the rows, you notice that the n term in each row is increasing by 1. So the difference is 1, because from 1 to 2 the difference is 1. So that is just that. So now the n is column. The n is column. The n is changing from 1. That is, the n is the nth column. I can call the n is the nth column. So now if you say the n is column, so now that means T column is the same thing. This is 1. The first one is 1 plus column minus 1 times 1. This will give you column. So the n term will be column. Now if you look at each column, the way the thing changes, you notice that this one, the difference between this and this is 7. The difference between this and this is 7. Now if you look at it thoroughly, you notice that if you subtract 7 from the whole of this, it will be the same with this and this one too. Now what will you subtract from this to make it the same with this? Is 2 times 7 of it. Now that's the same. This one now will be 1 times 7. This one should be 0 times 7, which is 0, is it not? You see, here is 0, 1, 2. See the way the thing is changing. Now that means this one should be 3 times 7. The next one will be 4 times 7. The other one should be 5 times 7. So now we need a kind of a universal, a generic formula. Now, so a generic formula, this 7 signifies, let me call it mx column, that is maximum column, the maximum column, which is what? 7. So that means this, if you multiply the nth row, now it's not the nth row, because here now the first row is the value for the first row, what you're using is 0. Now here you're adding, here is what you're adding here to remain the way it is just 0. You add 0 to the first row, it will remain the same. If you add 7 to this, if you add 7 to this first row, it will give you this one. If you add 14 to this one, it will give you this. If you add 21 to the next one, just like if I add 21 here will be 22. You see, here is 21, 22. If you add that is if you add 21, that is 3 times 7. Here will now be what? 23. Here will be 24. 24. Here is 25, 26, 27, 28. The next one is 29. That is, if you add 4 times 7, that is 28 plus 1. That is it. If you add 28 plus 2, you have 30. If you add 20, just like that. So you see, and this one now signifies first row. First row. And for first row is 0. The second row is 1. So it means that in this form is changing by row minus 1 times the maximum column. So while the terms, if you're moving in each of these rows now, is increasing by 1. Now if you add this, if you check at this point, this one, these values you're adding here now is constant. So if you check that, if you add this to this, that means the terms will now be row minus 1 times maximum column plus column. That means if you now use this formula, you can be able to determine, let's say I want to determine this position now, and this position is second row third column, which is 10. If I put that 2 there, if I put 2 here now, 2 minus 1 give me 1 times what? 7 plus the column is 3. Now you now have, this is 7 plus 3, which will give you 10. You see, and the same thing as 10 here. Okay, let's use it to look for this one. You see here now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth row, and the fifth column. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you add 5 here, if you put 5 there, what is it? No, 4. The row is 4. 1 times 7 plus the column is 5. So here now is a constant. So what will happen now here is 3 times 7 plus 5. So this will give you 21 plus 5, that is 26. So when you check, this is 26. So this is kind of a universal formula to be able to form the index for that, be able to define the index that will give you this spreadsheet. So having explained this, we'll go into using this formula. Now let's create, using this formula, I need to create a function. I need to also create a function. Let me call the function private. Let me say private function. Let me call it index. Index brackets open and close. I'll say row as integer, then column as integer. Then I define the function as as integer. Now we have this. That means that index should be equal to brackets open and close. So you have row minus 1 times max column plus column. Now this function. Now this function, we also need to define some things. I use max, so I need to define this max. The max as integer. Now, having done this, I will now come over to this. There are things I needed to use that I needed to define here. I'll say dim, define row, dim row as integer, comma, column as integer, then I as integer. Now let me continue. If there's anything I will define, I will do so. Now let's begin. What I will now do next is I will not say for I equal to 1 to 1 to 7, just like what we defined there, 1 to 7 enter. Let me also make the max. Let me use the max here. Let me define the max. I can make the max public, define it public here so that you can use it public max column as integer. Now say max row as integer. So I don't need to define it here again. Except for now here, I'm not supposed to use I. Let me say row is equal to this. I'll say next row. And then now I'll say for column equal to 1 to 7. Now I will now say next column. So next column. Now the first index of the control array is in the form. It's defined, it's in the form. You cannot load it again. Since you cannot load it, and the row and column of that is 1, is the row is 1 equal to 1 and the column is equal to 1. So, and you don't want to load it again. If you load it again, it will be an error. So for you not to load it, you use an if not. Use an if not statement, bracket open and close. You say if not this, if this is equal to 1, if not this is equal to 1 and column is equal to 1, then what you do, you load. Okay, now I needed to reference, I say with the form. Now here I end with say end with. Now I will indent this inside, so I will now load this dot txt bracket open and close, call it I dot, yeah, stop at this. So we have this. Then now, before I do this, let me assume that I is equal to, before doing this, I will assume that I is equal to index bracket open close row comma row. Now meaning that for, let's say 1 and 1, it comes here, it jumps because that one already has been loaded. But if it's 1 row 1 column 2, it will load. If it's row 2 column 1, it will load. So vice versa. But if it's row 1 and column 1, it will not load. They say if not, so it will not load. Now that is what explains here. Now, so with this, I will load new ones I will create. Then I will end the if statement here. I will end the if statement here. So let me put this one in. I will end the if statement here. Then the next one, I will say if the row is greater than 1, then let me just say I end the if statement. If the row is greater than 1, what will happen is, now let me go back to this. Let me open another page. Now, to define the row, now let's say you have this. You want to define this one of row, that is row number row, or let me say row I. If you want to define row I, you will use row I minus 1 to define it. Now, the other way to define the location of this row recursion of this text box on this row. Now you need to know the top of this, so the top of this will now be txt cell bracket. Now it will now be bracket index row minus 1, comma, column, comma, close comma, then dots top. This should be the cell top. We use this to define the cell top. The cell top of this I-1 text box. Then now to define this I row, so we now say txt cell bracket open index, the index number, row and column, which is this one will be, let me call it I. Let me just represent this with I. It will now be dot top will be equal to cell height plus cell top. So the height is from here to here. The height is constant. This height, the formula to get the height is C cell height equal to text cell 1 text cell 1 dot height. So this is what is obtainable. This is the way to go about it. So let's begin. Let's go back and begin. That means at this row, okay, let me say I needed to define okay, those cells, let me define them up here as public. Let me define them as public. Let's say cell height as integer. Or let me say long. One is long, cell height, and this one is cell width as long. Now I can come here and use it. This does not define. Let me just come here and add it here. Let me see. Cell height is equal to, you need to define all you're using. Now I need to define the cell height up there as public so that it will be visible in every of the subroutines. Now, so that I won't be repeating it in wherever I'm using it to. I will say this is equal to, say dot, no, this is not dot, txt cell bracket open and close, this is 1 dot height then cell width is equal to, let me just say one here so that you must make an error sign. Let me copy this and replace this one with that. I will now change this to width, WI width. So I will just say controls. I press control and space bar. The thing will just write it out. So I've defined this cell width and cell height. Now I needed to use it here. I will now say, I'll say cell top, which is not defined there, is equal to, and also put all of them to defining cell top and cell height. I can put all of them together. Let me just say, T. Let me say dot. So txt cell bracket open I bracket close dot top is equal to, let me just copy this. We copy it so that I won't retype it. So I won't retype it. I will just change this to index function bracket open row -1 comma colon brackets close bracket close plus cell height. So that is it. So we are done with this. Now I can copy this. Can copy it and paste. I copy it and paste here. Then I change this to column. Now if the column is greater than 1, now because already row 1, for row 1, if the row is greater than 1, you understand? If you say, let's say row 1, you start with let's say this one is 1. If you put 1 here will be 0. The index here will be 0. So now if you say row 0, that is index 0. Sorry, the row here will be 0. Now there is no row 0, but anything greater than 2 will give you 1. Will give you, that is if row is greater than 1, which is 2, here will give you 1. But if you say 0, because there is no index 0 here, based on, because the first when we defined our text, but the index was 1. So this greater than 1. If this is greater than 1, then this, then end if. Then if it is equal to 1, if it's equal to 1, but the rule is here, if it's equal to 1, this will not run. But if it runs, there is no index 0, so it will crash, to crash the program. The same to this one. The same to this. If row is 1, it will crash this. Now, and you're using for column, you're using column to define. You're using column when you're defining this. You say you define it with the column before that column. So it should be column minus 1. So when you say column minus 1, if you consider 1, that means you have an index 0, which is not possible and which was not defined in this program. So you needed to put an if statement to handle the error. That this is a kind of an error handling using if statement. Now, so here you knock off this, because you only, what you use here is minus 1 here for the column. Now when you check the column, is the left position that it will be defining. Say left, this side should be left, this should be left, this should be left, then this should be width. Now I haven't defined this cell width and cell column, so this is left, correct. Now the same with this, what I did here. You know, in columns, you're moving from column to column. Let's say you have column this, you're moving to the next column. Let's say this is column. The one adjacent to it is column minus 1. So if you want to define this, you define the left of this. Here is the left from the margin of the form. You calculate the left of this, then the width of this same one, or the very first cell of index 1, which is what we're using, because they are the same size. So of this, then you have gotten the left of this column you want to define. So that is that. So that is what we did here. That is what this thing describes. And then now, I haven't done this. So we have virtually defined this. We have loaded it. We needed to now say, we needed to make it visible. Now I'll copy. Let me be sure this thing looks like 1. Let me just be sure it's higher. Okay. Now let me copy here. Let me copy this one. Copy, paste it here. Paste. And then I just say dots. This, so change this should be I. Now, so it will be visible. But this is visible. So let me now see. So we are good to go. Let me now run it. Let me use F8 function. Now I click here. Sorry, I needed to call this one. I need to call this here. So I'll now say call that subroutine. Call it. I need to call it here. Now let me just use F8 again. Click this to go to that form. So it will run. You see, when you check now, it's going through the forms. Now let's explain what's happening. Look at this one now. You have, this is 4, index 4. This is 1 and 5. 1 and 5. It will give you index 4. So with this, let me just do it faster. There's an error somewhere. It loads 1. Why will it load 1? You shouldn't have load 1 because with 2 row 2 column 1 gives you this is 2 1 2 times 7 plus cannot be row 2 column 1. This should give you 8. So this should give you 8. This is 1. Let me see the formula we got the other time. Which was it? Row 1 times maximum column plus column. So it should not be 1. This will not give. Let me see. Next column, next row. Let me pause this and check. Okay, now let's go through it thoroughly again through using F8. Now, so this is 1 now. This one will be 1 2. Here should be 1 1. Now to jump with this function, it jumps to this place. This, let's look at what is this. This one is 0. This one is 1. So that means this maximum column, I did not give a value for it, so it will take the form 0. So that is where the error is coming from. Let me now exit. So I needed to add a value for it here. So now I will now say maxi column equal to 7. Equal to 7. So this should be 7. Now have this. So I needed to also define the form, the width of the form. So let's say I'll call here, say maxi column equal to 7. Maxi row equal to 7. Now here I will now say I will not define the, let me say, the width of the form. So I will say from, there's ephemeral from dots, let's say width of the form will not be equal to. Now before I begin, let me say width. Before I begin, let me come down here and say my I here will be equal to index bracket open max 0 comma maxi colon bracket close. Now I've gotten this, so now I'll say this is equal to, this one will now be equal to, now the width will be equal to the last, I'll say dot, the last of this, which is I now, because if the form, if as it's running, after running the whole of this, if it gets to this, it will take I to be this, so the I will be the last of that, which is 7 and 7. Because what happens is that the former I here, when it gets to this point, it will erase those I and work with this, with this new I here given. So that is where it works. Well, we look at it with the F8. We look at it, and now here will be dot. I'll say dot left. Left plus cell width was, let's say, 600. Then the form height, I'll copy this, I'll call it paste. Let me change this to H, then press Control spacebar. Now have height, press the tab key. Here I'll change this to top, the top of the 7th one, let's say T, the top of the 7th one, the top of the 7th one, plus the height is 6. Let's see, let me still use 600. Now let's run it again, because now I've given value to this, and I also given value to it here. So let's see, let's press F8, press this, go through it. This not defined. Okay, let me see, maxi, that's it. So this is supposed to be maxi, so it will be defined now, because I defined it as public here. Let me see, max 0, max 6, yeah, because of wrong spelling, that was why. Let me continue, because of wrong spelling. Now let's see what was, okay, let's go back. Okay, let's come here now. You see, this max is 7 here, this is what, 7, so it will work out now. Now let's see, what is this, 2, here is what, 1, here is what, 2. Let's look at our formula. Here is 2, here is 1, here is 2, so it works. It's okay now, it's okay, it's okay, okay. Let's work it out now. Let's move it faster. Let me now look at this. What is this? This is 0, 0, 7. 0, 7. This. Let me see. Rows. Let me see. If you check, it jumps when it gets to the play, jump here. So it will continue. It has not selected this. But why that one is 7 there and this one is still 0? Because it has taken the value here, 7. This one has not taken any value. That's why this one still remains 0. But when after solving, when it gets to that place, it will take this value here that is 7. Because it has not gone to that. Let me see where it is now. 46. It's getting to an end. Because it's supposed to be, the end is supposed to be 49. Because 7 times 7 is 49. Now let's look at the form. See? You have 7 by 7. So this is done. Now let's go back. Let me now click this. Just click like this. You see the form just expands. And this side did not expand. Okay, it expands, but just a small height. So let me increase this to, let's say, 1000. Let me see whether it will come up well. Okay, 1000 is, let me make it 2000. Let me make it 2000. Great, it's okay. This one, there is space here. Let me make this one, let's say, let's call this one 14. 14. Let me just work it out again. So it's okay. It looks fine, and now it looks better. It looks better. So I'll stop here, then I'll continue. I'll stop here. Sorry, we'll stop here